Michael Besson here. Welcome to Chapter 1. It is called The Life Matrix. And I got to tell you, it is probably the most profound thing I have ever learned in really 30 years of personal development. A little over that in studying theology and just experiencing some of the top personal development people on the planet, up to and including serving as Tony Robbins' vice president. But I want to share some things that only happen, I would say, if you went to a smorgasbord and it was like a large buffet and you decided, I'm going to try some of this. And then some people go, well, I'm only a vegan, so I only do like vegan stuff. And some people, I'm only a vegetarian. Well, I eat meat, but I only eat white meat. When it came to personal development, when it came to theology, when it came to what makes this world happen, I'm one of these unique people that went to the table of science, that went to the table of quantum physics, that went to the table of what I would now quantify as some false religions, that went to the table of the Word of God and tasted it all. What I found, what I discovered, in large measure to an amazing man called Dr. Jim Richards and others, is that it all fit together. You see, only one God, if you will, created gravity. So there's a number of laws out there that affect our life. And the one I'm going to talk to you about right now is your life matrix. This is the free chapter in the video series with 16 chapters. But if you will just stay with just this one, if you will just watch this entire thing and nothing else, it will change your life forever. And you, my friend, you will enter the journey of extraordinary. So what is the matrix? The matrix is a paradigm, a perspective, a way with which we experience, understand, and relate to life, right? We all have it, but how did we get it? Some of us were born in Africa or China. Some of us were born in the North American continent. So wherever you were born, it had an effect on you, part of the life matrix. But let's just break it down to the absolute first moment, the moment of conception. At the moment of conception, a spiritual and a physical DNA were imparted into the very person that makes you you, the uniqueness of you. Just like a thumbprint, we're all incredibly unique. But here's what science has just discovered. In fact, it's Emory University that did this profound study, which, by the way, it's so exciting. Science is catching up with the Bible. Check this out. We now know that memory cells, cellular memory, can get passed down 3 and 4 generations. And of course, that's been written in the original language of the Torah. It's been written in the original language of the New Testament for thousands of years, but we never had the science until our day and time, our era, is actually coming along. In fact, when you get to study quantum physics and quantum mechanics, you're going to discover that there has to be a supreme being. There has to be an intelligent designer. Now, I'm just going to challenge you. Don't worry about what you think you come from, because I'm going to challenge your life matrix. 80% of us, really, if you're in sales, if you're in business, 20% of people do 80% of the business. 80% of the people tend to live a very similar life to that of their previous generations. And there's studies all over about this. One of them that I work with in business a lot is called the VAL study from Stanford University. And it breaks down like we have a facility, we have an office in Naperville, Illinois. I love those people, love the Midwest. They got family values, they got everything. But if you're a marketer, then you know that 37% of the people are the belongers. They drink a certain kind of beer, they drive a certain kind of car, they live in certain kind of houses. Their number one core wound is divorce. They don't want anybody moving more than 250 miles. And if you do, from where they started, or if you do, you're one of the black sheep of the family. I mean, there's very specific markers, but what causes that? Well, what causes that is the life matrix. So at the moment of conception, there's a spiritual and physical DNA molecule imparted into your life. But after that, what happens? Well, after that, what takes place is You are involved with a particular culture in the world. Well, what is a culture? It's a word to describe how people behave in a geographical region. But really what it is, it's an impartation of values and beliefs. So if you grow up in China, you get imparted a certain kind of values and beliefs on the coattails, if you will, of your spiritual and physical DNA, which, by the way, goes back 3 generations in your mom and 3 generations in your father. And so what that means is anybody who had a predisposition to certain behavioral traits, to certain physical traits, to certain ailments, then they were passed down to you. Now, here's something really wild for you medical doctors. You know, how many of us have gone to our physicians, and you're filling out those ridiculous forms because they're 10 years behind and everything, and as you're filling them out, it says, do you have any family history of diabetes, of heart conditions, of strokes, of whatever, right? Here's the crazy thing. Did you know that that doesn't even matter anymore? Again, the 80-20 rule, let me just explain it to you. When physicians were trained as recently as 10, 15, 20 years ago, they were taught that there was a genetic predisposition to certain kinds of health problems. The truth is, if you change the way you feel in your heart, we're going to get into this in other chapters, but I want you change your very DNA. They're called, the layman's terms, it's like a helix, but basically, if you live in fear, anxiety, worry, depression, if you're thinking about a horrible divorce, if you're thinking about a huge loss in your life, if you've experienced post-traumatic stress syndrome of some kind, and we all have, we're going to do a whole chapter on it because it's not what you think. What happens is it's imparted into you at a heart level. And it amplifies whatever the spiritual and physical DNA that you got passed down to you, which means you do have a predisposition to alcoholism or diabetes or heart disease or strokes or you name it, right? But if you could change the frequency of your heart, which you can, by the way, your DNA changes. So let's talk about the original life matrix. Here's what this means. This means that a bunch of us are walking around in life with a spiritual and physical DNA, a values and belief system that comes in from our parents. So from 0 to about, remember this, by the way, 0 to about 3 years old, we don't even have the brain development yet to discern between a good thought or a bad thought. And so what we do is we just, whatever frequency is going, let's say your mom and dad are getting a divorce. I was abandoned when I was a few months old. There was a spirit of rejection. There was a spirit of hating male figures in my family. I grew up with basically 7 females that all hated the male species. Now, what do you think that imparted? We all have the stories. We all have the impartation moments at those times. Let's say that your mom and dad had financial problems. Do you know that some people walk around their entire life in lack, in a spirit of poverty, of thinking, there's never going to be enough, when all it is a belief system imparted into what? The original life matrix. So the original life matrix is a spiritual and physical DNA. It is a values and belief system, and then you get older, and what happens? As you're into the grade schools, and you're into junior high school, and you're starting to get peer values and beliefs, probably still influenced by a culture, a particular place that you grew up, right? And then if any time during that time you were told these words, "We're X religion," now you're handed a distortion of the reality of God. So if you were born into a family that passed on, I'm not beating up any religion, most people in most religions, not all, some of them want to kill people, most people in most religions have an impartation of a distorted viewpoint of God, which means that your original life matrix is probably a God that's angry at you. It's probably a God that's out to get you. Is a God that's watching you, ready to club you over the head for everything that you do wrong, when really it's a God chasing you to bring you wholeness. And there's a whole bunch of people like me understanding this, imparting it to others, right? So here's what happens with your matrix. We start to go through life, and we get the birth of the DNA and the physical. We get the bucket, I call it the bucket of everything that you ever caught. You're too fat, you're too short, you're not educated enough, you're not born in the right family, and everything you were ever taught. And it becomes your values and beliefs. And these values and beliefs, by time we, kick you out of the house, it's 18 years old time, you're going to go off to the service, or you're going to go off to school, you're going to go off to a trade, or a lot of millennials are staying home, I guess. Whatever it is a paradigm that is cemented into your very soul. And so what will happen is great opportunity will come in 3 areas of your life, for your whole life. Weak levels of opportunity, medium levels of opportunity, extraordinary levels of opportunity, to health, wealth, and relationships. Relationships are falling in love. Relationships are friends. Relationships are siblings, right? Moms and dads. So the 3 areas of life that the matrix is going to deeply affect is your health, your wealth, and your relationships. And here's the bad news. The matrix, you ready? Write this down. If you don't get anything else, write this down. The matrix creates invisible boundaries, thermostats, if you will. When you come into an air-conditioned home, I live out west and we have air conditioning, and y'all in the Midwest, you have a lot of heaters. It hits a certain temperature and it says, that's it, we're shutting the thing down and we're going to turn on the heat. That's it, we're shutting this temperature down, we're going to turn on the air conditioning if you live out west in the hotter climates, right? It's the same thing in your life, man. The original life matrix begins to turn on a switch when you get the job opportunity of a lifetime. When you get a health challenge and a doctor, one of the parts of my story that I'm going to share in different chapters, but I'm going to give it to you here, right, is I had the unfortunate set of circumstances of I was speaking, I walked into my hotel room, and I had a massive stroke. I lost my ability to speak, talk, text, write, the whole thing. 5 days later, I thought I had a ulcer. And as it turns out, I had colon cancer, that the tumor had gotten to the size where it was larger, it was 1 centimeter bigger than a baseball. And it required emergency surgery. And I remember, because I know how this matrix works, I know how we can change the transmissions and completely change a different outcome. I'm going to share with you how I got through that in basically 60 days because of how this works and how I had conditioned my heart in a way that whatever showed up in life, I knew I could now overcome it. So I was sitting down with the chief of neurology who at Stanford University, his name's Dr. Cho, great guy. They ended up doing a study on me because I taught myself how to speak in 4 days when they told me it would take over a year. This is the exact kind of stuff I'm going to pass down to you in the book Extraordinary. Because it doesn't matter what happens to you in life, it matters how you respond to it. And so I'm sitting down with the chief of neurology and I'm sitting down with the chief of surgery. It's a pretty special room. And the chief of neurology says, because you had this kind of stroke, Michael, we can only put you under anesthesia for about 90 minutes. I go, okay, got it. How long is the surgery going to take? As I look over to the chief of surgery. And he looks at me and he says, somewhere between 4 and 12 hours, depending on the complications, but we're going to need you to sign this document because this document is probably you're not going to come out of this or you're not going to come out of this very good. It is a worst case scenario. And here's what I said. Okay, I got it. Because what I'm doing is I'm responding to life data because I blew my birth matrix away about 2 years earlier. So I no longer live in fear when I hear, yeah, I'm a human being, I felt fear. Yeah. But I went, okay, that's not going to serve me. So I'm going to go into massive faith. I'm going to go into the sense of certainty here. I said, Dr. Cho, I really appreciate that. Let me tell you what's going to happen. You're going to put me under anesthesia, and I'm going to actually come out of it better than anybody you've ever had before. And you, sir, are going to take this tumor out of me and 1/3 of my colon. I'm going to be completely fine. I'm never going to need chemo. And by the way, gents, has anybody ever come out of this surgery and done a yoga warrior pose within 45 minutes? He said, no. I said, that's who I am. That's what I'm going to do. Are we all on the same page? You see, when you change the life matrix, when you change the way you look at something, the things you look at have to change. Okay, get ready to write this down. This is probably the biggest thing I can share with you in this one brief first chapter. I don't want these things to be real long. I want you to think about them. I want you to watch them. I want you to write stuff down, right? There's a book called The Life of a Plant, and its discovery within the next 35 years changed the world. And what it was a gentleman that did lie detector tests. I think it was in the 60s. And just for the heck of it, he put the probes that, you know, you've seen in the movies. If you've never been on one or been in a real one, just movies. And you look at this, and he put it into a plant just to see if the plant would do anything. And as he did that, a spider happened to cross his desk. Again, the book is called The Life of a Plant. And as he saw this spider, he emotionally went to grab a piece of paper to hit the spider. And when he did, the plant went on the lie detector. The plant knew there was a frequency coming out of this man and registered it. The plant knew it. Well, now you go 10 years, you go 15 years, you go 20 years. About 10 years ago, this is 25-ish years later than this first thing happened, our technology increased, our ability to see how far we could take those signals, and here's what we discovered. You could take a piece of DNA. This is why it's so important. Your life matrix, understanding that it is putting off a frequency and it is manifesting your life. People, places, things, circumstances of your life are showing up because of the frequency coming off of your being. Let me prove it to you. You ready? It's going to blow your mind. We would take the DNA from a person and we put it, at first they put it 4 feet away. And then they showed this individual different images, random images on a computer. Things that would make you laugh, things that would make you cry, things that would make you, you know, totally freak out. And as they would do that, the DNA would respond in real time. So they took the DNA and they went 40 feet away and the exact same thing happened. They went 400 feet away. They went 40 miles away. And current technology has shown in real time whatever is coming off of me right here. Boom, boom, every heartbeat. Whatever I think, whatever I believe from my original life matrix, 400 miles away. And it's only because of technology that we don't currently, we're not able to currently measure it. But quantum physicists have already figured out it doesn't end. What does that mean? It means everything. It means that in the original life matrix, you gathered beliefs about love, about romance, about business, about money. You gathered a bucket of who you are. You gathered it and you didn't even know you were gathering it. And you are wired to fail. What do I mean by that? We live in a fallen world. You know, it's interesting. I'm gonna throw in science and I'm gonna throw in the Word of God. It's kind of like intellectual jujitsu, right? There is a passage that, and it's red letters, it's something Jesus said. He said, the enemy only comes to steal, kill, and destroy. Steal our money, kill our bodies, and destroy our relationships. It is everything that life is the degree with which our money is stolen, because we're wired from the life matrix to lose, to work for others, to not become radical entrepreneurs. I've been a radical entrepreneur my whole life. It's because I changed the matrix. We are wired to have destructive relationships. Doesn't mean everybody, no. Some of us had the blessing of getting values and beliefs that created good families. Some of us had the blessing of role model marriages. But can we just be really, really honest? How many 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 50-year-old marriages do you know where the husbands and wives still sleep together, hold hands, open the door for each other, love each other unconditionally, have grown so close together they can finish each other's sentences and not in a cynical, negative way. What I'm telling you is even the ones that are married, there's so few who are living the life of extraordinary. You know, when I look at my dad who left, God bless, my mom and dad are both gone, crossed over. I don't know where their eternal destination went. I don't know if they believed in Christ. But here's the thing. You know, I don't hold any ill will against them. I don't hold ill will against people who come. And there's going to be a whole chapter of what you do to bad people in your life. You know, while I was in the hospital fighting for my life, 21 days, I had a crazy business partner who actually tried to steal my company. I mean, we all have things, right? I'm going to teach you how to handle that in a way where you will always win. But it all comes down to, can you shift out of your original life matrix to have a life of extraordinary? Now here's where some of you shift, just to show you real life practical ways, right? You go to college and you come back, you go, wow, man, I don't think like I thought in the Midwest. I don't think like I thought in California. I don't think like I thought when I was in Florida. I remember being in boot camp. I was in the Navy, and I remember, wow, not everybody thinks like a kid that grew up in a bar and a pool hall in Detroit. Not everybody thinks like the thugs that I grew up with. Not everybody thinks that negative thing that I was imparted to. I grew up in a certain place where people were negative, bitter. You had to have people take care of you because you couldn't take care of yourself, so they voted a certain way. It was a life matrix experience. So here's my challenge to you. If you can shift out of your life matrix, if you can shift out of the values and beliefs, and I'm talking, it is a profound shift, because the way your life matrix affects you is you wake up with what I want you to write this down. It's called an abiding feeling. It is the feeling with which you experience life the majority of the day. And whatever that frequency is, it's either one of two. It's either faith-based, side, or it's fear-based. It's either, let's call faith love. It's either grounded in love, that emotion, that feeling rather, or it's grounded in fear. So I want you to picture two trees. One is a love tree, and it's got kindness and gentleness and mercy and forgiveness and giving people the benefit of the doubt, seeing the best in everybody, knowing everybody has light and dark. Everybody has good and bad. Everybody can do the darkest stuff under the right kind of circumstances. Don't kid yourself, right? But when we see the best in people, we are operating out of a spirit of love. And we're watching the fruit, the manifestation, and what's happening. Every time your heart beats, you're sending out an electromagnetic frequency. And every atom and molecule in the entire universe, we know this now, is responding. And it is creating circumstances. It is creating death spirals for love lives. It's been a huge challenge in my life because it was passed down for multiple generations, and gender confusion in different parts of my family, and divorce at a crazy dysfunctional level. And we all, you know what, and by the way, my story's not special, neither's yours. One of the most profound things you can discover in life is your story's not that special. There's 7 billion of us on this planet, and most of us have the same broken life matrix. So here's what you do. You shift out until your abiding feeling is grounded in love. And I'm going to teach you how to do that in the other chapters. I'm going to give it to you briefly here because I promised you I would. Or you're going to live in this place of fear. It's the fear tree. And on the fear tree, there's fruit. And the fruit, it comes like anxiety, fear, worry, trepidation. You know, there's always somebody out to get me. I have a lot of single friends right now in my life, and I hear this way too much. There's no good people out there anymore. Okay, the fear tree is a tree of lack. It says there's never enough. You're never going to get what you want. And guess what happens? Every time your heart beats, every atom and molecule, if you think about this, I don't know if anybody's ever explained this to you. Your body, the sum total of the mass, is about the size of a golf ball. Everything else is energy. In fact, at a subatomic particle, there is no mass. But we could take your entire body, the mass, and we could shrink it to the size of a golf ball. This is what quantum physics, quantum mechanics tells us. Now, what the heck does that mean? It means that energetic transmission of all that fear, all of that lack, is manifesting your life in large measure to your original life matrix. And when you shift over to what I'm going to call the tree of love, right? Where you start to, and this is what you do. I'm going to give you a new word here. It's not a new word. It's an old word. But I'm going to give you a new way of looking at this word. Meditation. New Agers stole it, called it new. It actually was in the Bible several hundred times before the translators changed it. It means to think on, to ponder, to process, to the exclusion of everything else, to mutter about it, to like speak about it. And what that means is that every single day I wake up and I have an abiding feeling about life. And if I live in that place of love, which is at ease, it's just at ease. You know, it's all going to just happen. There's a great new video out called Motivation for 2017, and Jim Carrey is interviewed in it, and he says, you know, I used to be on Prozac, and then I just realized life is good. Well, I don't know if he knows it, but he shifted himself at a quantum mechanics level. He shifted his quantum field. I'm going to give it to you for you faith-based people, because a lot of you guys are hung up, wrongly so, on some of these scientific terms. Let me tell you what I'm talking about. You're supposed to consider it all joy when anything stresses you out at all. It's actually what James 1 actually really means in the original line. Anything that stresses you out, go at ease. Why? Because you shift what God already knew was the quantum field, and you shift your life matrix. So when I meditate on all the goodness of my life. I meditate on the gratefulness of my life. I think about how thankful I am for the things that I have in my life. And I don't live in that tree anymore. Am I a human being? Do I have moments? Do I ever, say the wrong kind of words and scream and cuss? You bet you I do. But I don't live there. I don't live there anymore. And for the first time in my life, I'm manifesting extraordinary friends, extraordinary business, extraordinary problem solving, extraordinary relationships. And every time something, I call this, you'll get used to this term throughout this video series, life data. When life data comes at you and it delivers something you don't like, a bill that you can't pay, a love that you think you lost, when you get to the tree of love and you are at ease, not a state of dis-ease, which is what brings us death. If you're at a state of ease, you know you're always being promoted. No matter what comes up and shows up as if it's not working, it's all good. Everything always works together for the good. Did you know that if you are a believer in God, there's a promise that everything constantly works out for your good? 100%, not 99%. But it doesn't mean anything if you don't believe it at a heart level. There's a huge problem in the Western world. And the Western world is this. We are caught up in knowledge. We think knowing something is experiencing something. One of the most profound things that I learned about this little shift that I did is somebody gave me this, it's like a Gideon Bible, Steve Jobs autobiography. And the number one thing I got out of it is that Steve realized the Western world operated in left brain. And when I had to reprogram my mind, I learned the difference between the left brain and the right brain, and I actually got the privilege of rewiring my brain, which is crazy if you think about it, right? That's what this actually does for you, right? Well, Steve started to operate on a word that you've probably heard before. It's called intuition. Intuition is under the fruit of the love tree. It's at ease. It's not taking necessarily the right left brain data in. It's just going, you know what, I got an intuition about this. Intuition is what drives you. All of a sudden, when you shift your matrix and you're at ease, you hear a conversation. You hear something that you never heard before. You go, oh! Or you hear, call this person. Do business with this person. Don't do business with that person. You begin to get distinctions that drive you to the next level of extraordinary in your life. So it's really simple. But simple doesn't always mean easy. In fact, here's one of the biggest challenges you're going to have. Right now, I want you to get this. I want you to write it down. That which we need the most, we resist the greatest. There will be people, places, and things that come into your life that give you the open door to the next level of love, the next level of relationships, the next level of resources or health. And what we'll do with those is we will resist them. If you're an alcoholic and people that love you, they come, they do an intervention. Guess what happens at interventions? Because I've done a lot of them. People resist that which they need the greatest. So it's going to be simple to shift this matrix. It's not going to be easy. You're going to have to do a ritual every day. So people ask me all the time that haven't seen me in so long, oh my gosh, you look so different. Well, yeah, I lost 50 pounds. I have more strength. I have more stamina than people half my age. Why? Because I began to meditate on my heart about extraordinary health, being in an extraordinary shape. I'm going helicopter skiing in 2 weeks. This is the life that you can have if you're sitting on the couch, if you're stuck in your health, your wealth, and your relationships, if only you will change one word, and we talked about it earlier. The word is meditation, but not the way you think of it. You see, you have been meditating your entire life, driving down the road, thinking about your day, waking up in the morning, thinking about your life, looking over at your significant other and thinking about where you're really at, waking up, looking at yourself in the mirror and going, this is where I'm at. See, those are meditations that persuade the cellular memories in your heart. And when you begin to, on purpose, with intention, meditate, get very, very quiet. I put on some background music. You can Google it or YouTube it, and you'll find an extraordinary variety of music. And I just go away and I get into what I call the heart zone. And the heart zone is a place where you're absent from life, but you're present in the emotional seat of what makes you you. The passion seat of your soul is what the original Hebrew word for heart means. You meditate on extraordinary health, extraordinary wealth, extraordinary relationships. And what's going to begin to happen is you're going to see the pushback in your own heart. You're not going to think you're deserving of a raise. You're not going to think your heart deserves extraordinary love. And the problem is the life matrix has set these invisible boundaries. And so what I'm going to encourage you with, what I'm going to just scream, shout, and dance with you about is we'll do more to avoid pain than we will do to gain pleasure. And a life of extraordinary is filled with pleasure, but that's not enough, right? So I pray that my story affects your soul in a way where you will go and you will come along with us on the journey of a lifetime to extraordinary. I'm one of the few people in life, few is overstated, I'm sure there's thousands and probably millions, who died and came back. I actually was so ill, I crossed over, I had an amazing experience, and I came back. The reason I have a beard is because that 9-day period of time I was so ill, I couldn't shave. And I decided to grow a beard so the rest of my life I could look at that and I could always remember, you had a second chance at a life of extraordinary. So when you're facing cancer and a stroke and people are asking you to sign documents that say you're not going to make it, and you come out the other side like a warrior towards the mountain of extraordinary, you have the motivation to do this. You have the desire. You have the passion, right? So whether it's your love life, whether it's your finances, where you just want to take it to another level, whether it's your health, where you could be anything at any age, the key is meditating in your heart and seeing yourself as if it had already happened. The Bible calls it seeing the end from the beginning. Quantum physics calls it changing the way you look at something so that the thing that you're looking at literally changes on a subatomic particle level. So here's what this means. If you will daily take time out to create, to manifest. See, we were born co-creators. We were created by a creator to be co-creators. And the sum total of your life's meditations that you didn't even know you were doing every single day of your life has produced the life you have. And God bless you for the areas of your life that you're very content with, that you're very blessed with. But most of us, I dare say almost all, are settling. We're settling for what we picked up in the life matrix. I know people who want to be married and the only family members they've ever seen are their moms and dads who quit sleeping in the same room 25 years ago. I know people like me who have never had role models of extraordinary marriages. I know people who have never seen real wealth of any kind or any kind of financial stability because of their life matrix. And you see, life doesn't matter what happens to us. What matters is how we respond by the meditations of our heart, the focus. Remember what I said earlier? It is focusing on the emotional center of who you are in such a way that everything else just disappears. You do it every time you go into a movie. If you go to a great church and you're listening to somebody speak, maybe even sometimes while we did this video, you leave the room and you're in that moment. You need to get to that moment in your heart. You get really quiet in your soul. And you need to see, you need to visualize extraordinary relationships, extraordinary next levels of resources, extraordinary levels of being fit and being healthy and being vibrant, right? So I don't wake up and go, oh, I gotta go to the gym. I wake up and I can't wait to exercise this amazing being, this amazing physicalness of myself. Same thing for you. So listen, I want to just tell you how excited I am about this whole book, all 16 chapters. But I want you, if nothing else, to understand the original life matrix. It's so wired into your passion, it's so wired into you emotionally, that every time something shows up that's the next level of extraordinary, you have emotional triggers setting you back. You're almost at the greatest love of your life. It triggers an emotional response to something that happened in your past. And what do? You sabotage. You get the greatest opportunity in business and you start skipping meetings. You start not answering emails. You start not showing up. I've seen it over and over. I've life coached thousands, tens of thousands probably by now in audiences and one-on-one and combination. And the patterns are all the same. So let me ask you a question. I'm going to leave you with this thought. Are you more committed to the emotional triggers in your life of a limited amount of health, a limited amount of wealth, a limited amount of love? Are you more committed to a life of extraordinary? Because if you are, you have come to the right place. The next 15 chapters are going to blow your mind. They're going to show you every place you ever stumbled, every place you've ever gotten stuck, and the strategies, methods, and tactics you can use once and for all to change your destiny forever. I'll see you at the mountain of extraordinary.